Good day, learners. Today, we are going to look at factorization as an introduction, which means here, now I'll go through this concept of factorization with you. This factorization, though it's in grade 9, basically, on the other hand of this factorization, it is simplify. This is what we do before we go further with factorization. Let's make an example. If we have an expression like 3x into 2x minus 1. If we want to remove the bracket, we use what you call distributive law. By distributive law, we mean the outside term, which is 3. It will multiply both the terms inside the bracket. Which means now, as it is this way, it's one term. But when we remove the bracket, it's going to give us a certain number of terms. Now, when we remove the bracket, we multiply the coefficients, which is 3, and by that coefficient inside the bracket, which is 2, and it's going to give us 6. And then multiply the variable, which means this variable x, it's in the power of 1, but it is an invisible one, cannot write it. And then it's x by x, it will be x squared. And then the positive sign here next to coefficient of x of 3 here, 3, and that negative inside the bracket. When we multiply a negative by a positive, you get a negative number. Therefore, 3x by 1, it will be 3x. All this, we call it simplification. You simplify. You simplify. Here, we were simplifying. When removing the bracket, as I already indicated, we use distributive law. Now, with factorization, it's like we are starting with the answer. With factorization, it's like starting with an answer. Which is an answer? It is 6x squared minus 3x. It's like we're going to start with this number when we factorize. Because it is the answer when we got from when we were factorizing, when we were simplifying. Now, when we factorize, we have to find the factors of 6 and 3. 6 and 3. Now, the factors of 6 and 3, the numbers that you can multiply and give you 6, for 6 it's 1 and 2, 3 and 6. For 3, it will be 1 and 3. Therefore, you can just see among these factors, 3 and this 3, it's a common factor. So we're taking out this common factor as it is, and it is equal to, we take common factor as 3. Now, between the x and the x squared, we're going to take the smaller degree of this variable, which is only x. And then we put our bracket. And then we want to know which term are we supposed to multiply this 3x to get 6x squared. It is 2x, because when we multiply the two terms, it's going to give us 6x. Now, this one, how many times? You can ask yourself, by how much am I supposed to multiply 3x to get minus 3x? It is minus 1. By so doing, these are the factors of the answer when we got from simplify. That is what we got. And this type of factorization, it is called taking or a common factor factorization. Now let us take this, as it is common factor factorization. This is the first type that we have, the common factor factorization. Let's make an example. There are types under this common factor factorization. We have already started with the first one, type 1, which is common factor factorization. Type 1, which is common factor factorization. Type 2 on this, it is what you call a common factor factorization, but that one includes brackets. It's the same factorization, common factor factorization, but it includes a bracket. Let's make an example. E.g., if we have 3 into x plus 1 minus 4 into x plus 1. This is type 2 of common factor factorization. It has bracket. That's why we have bracket. It's another type of factorization. Now look at this one. If you look at this one, we find that x plus 1, and this x plus 1 is our common factor. We take it out. Then we put our bracket. Now, how are you going to get the terms inside the bracket? Which means in terms of subject the bracket, this is term 1, this is term 2. So term 1 is going to be divided by the highest common factor, which is x plus 1. And then minus, and then term 2 must also be divided by the highest common factor. So our highest common factor is x plus 1. Therefore, when you looked at the answer to this one, it's the common factors, which is x plus 1 into, out of, what is our term 1? Our term 1 is 3 into x plus 1 divided by the highest common factor, which is x plus 1, minus the term 2 in our, that it is 4 into x plus 1 and divided by the highest common factor, which is x plus 1. And when you divide this, that's where we're going to find our factors. This one will cancel that, and this also will cancel that. And then we'll be having x plus 1 into 3 minus 4. And this becomes our factors. But here, they are like terms, which is like numbers. Which means we can simplify in the second bracket, which is 3 minus 4, it is minus 1. Therefore, we can write our factors as minus, not writing what could be an invisible one, into x plus 1. This is the type 2 of our common factor factorization. Because the one that we have used first for 1 is that one of that. Now, let me give you some examples, and then we'll go through those examples and see how best can we do them. The first one is, number 1, it is 3m squared minus plus 3mn. Number 2, it is where we have 15r squared and then minus 10rs. Number 3 is where we have k into 2k minus 3 plus into 2k minus 3. We can write this on a separate paper somewhere because we're going to go through this again. Number 4, it is, you know what? Okay, let me put it down so that at least by the time we come to this one, we'll do it together as well. It's 5a squared b minus 3ab squared plus 2ab. Number 5 is x into x plus 2 plus 3 into x plus 2 as well. Now, this is the 5 sum that I'd like us to complete. Remember, all these, I said factorization. All of them are the answers after we have simplified them. Therefore, we have to start with the factorization then, factorize them, using any type. Because here, in our questions, we have the first type and we have the second type. The first type, that's where we have a common factor factorization without bracket. And the second, number 3 and 5, are those type 2 with bracket. Now, let us start with the first one. You know what? There are several methods that can be used in order to find the answer to this. I'll switch to those 2 methods, and then thereafter you'll see what we can do. Let's start with number 1. It is 3m squared plus 3mn. Remember, when we started, you have to find the factors of 3 and 3. The factors of 3 and 3, let's say 3, first term, another 3. The factors is 1 and 3 and 1 and 3. But now 3 becomes common because it's 3 and 1. That 3 is come to common because you can take out that 3. Therefore, we take out 3 as a common factor. Now, we have m squared and m to the first power. I said earlier on, in order to find the highest common factor of the variable m squared and m, we're taking the m which is having a smaller degree, which is m in the second term. Then we put our bracket. We want to ask ourselves, by how much am I supposed to multiply? Or what is the product of m squared plus the other one to get to the 3m squared? It is m. And then the plus sign is already there. And then by how much I'm supposed to multiply 3m to get 3mn? It will be n. Therefore, this is our answer to what we have factorized. In other words, this type of factorization is called a common factor factorization. We have taken out the common factor. Our common factor is 3n. It's 3m. This is the common in both terms. Now, look at this. From the question, there are 2 terms, 1 and 2. Our answer is only 1 term. If we factorize, sometimes we'll find 1 term. Example number 2. That's where we have 15r squared minus 10rs. So we have 2 terms, which is 15r squared and 10r squared. Now the factors of 15 and 10. Here is 1, is 3, is 5, is 15. With 10 is 1, is 2, is 5, is 10. You can see from our factors of these 2 numbers, 5 becomes common in both numbers. That means 5 is our common factor. 5 is our common factor. Now we're looking at the variables. In the first term, we have r squared. In the second term, we have rs. You can see r in the second term is there. R squared in the first term is there. We're taking the common variable where we have a small degree, which is now, in this case, we have only r. Then we put our bracket, and then by how much I'm supposed to multiply this to get 15? It's like, I'll tell you why. It's like it is 3r and then minus 2s. It means this is our answer. From 2 terms, you get 1 term. You can go and prove this. If you multiply 5 by 3 is 15. R by r is r squared. 5 multiplied by 2 is 10. R multiplied by RS is RS. That is correct. So if you want to prove whether you are right or you are correct, you are wrong, or maybe you are incorrect, you can just go back and practice that by doing what? By simplifying, by removing the bracket going back. Remember when we started, we said factorization starts where we start to simplify certain things. And then after that, we're using the answers to factorize that expressions. Example number 3. This is type 2. The first 2 is type 1. This is type 1 factorization, where you're taking type 1, where we're taking a common factor in order to do what? To factorize a common factor factorization. The type 2 is where we have k into 2k minus 3 plus into 2k minus 3. This is type 2, where it has a bracket. And then if you look at the bracket, and how many terms first? This is the first term, this is the second term. There are only 2 terms. Now, in the first term and the second term, there are 2 which are common. The sum which is common, it is 2k minus 3. Remember in early stage when I talk about this is term 1 to be term 1 divided by what? This is the highest common factor divided by highest common factor, and then plus term 2 divided by highest common factor. And our highest common factor, our term 1 is k into 2k minus 3 divided by the higher common factor is 2k minus 3. Plus our common factor, our term 2 term is 2k plus 3 and divided by our highest common factor k plus 3. 2k plus 3. Then this is going to be cancelled. This one is cancelled and that's cancelled, left with k. And then plus this one is cancelled, this one we're left with y. And then our common factor is 2k minus 3. Put bracket and we put brackets. And this becomes our factors of k into k minus 3 plus k minus. Remember here is that invisible 1 and it's not written. We just leave it as it is. This is our type 2. This is type 2. Type 2. Type 2 do have what? Bracket. We're going to number 4 now. The one that I said, I'll explain it when we come to it. Now, this one, which is number 4, 5a squared b minus 3ab squared plus 2ab. There are several ways that you can use to factorize it. Now let us see. We all have A is there for term 1, A is there for term 2, A is there for term 3. Therefore, the first one is A. Then you look at B. We have B here, we have also B there, we have also B there, is B. So in other words, AB is our common factor. When you take out common factor AB from the first term, we are left with 5A. Because B is already there. And then minus, taking that will be 3, A is there, only B. And then last we have plus 2. This is common. In other words, this is our answer from that. This is our answer from that when you do factorization. Is this the same as type 1? This isn't the same as type 1 of factorization, whereby we're taking out a common factor. Now, we can multiply it. When we multiply it, it will be 5a squared b, 3ab squared, and then 2ab. That is that. This is still the type 1 of factorization. The last one, which is x into x plus 2 plus 3 into x plus 2. This is also another type, which is type 2 now, with the bracket. We have only term 1 and term 2. So we take out the common factor, is this one inside the bracket, x plus 2. And then we're going to divide term 1 by the highest common factor plus term 2 divided by the highest common factor. What's our common factor? Is x plus 2. And then when we divide that, it will be x plus 2 divided into x plus 2 divided by highest common factor, which is x plus 2. Plus term 2 is 3 into x plus 2 divided by the highest common factor, which is x plus 2. Then we can start cancelling and having the answer. And this one side, it will cancel this one. And then we will be left with x. And then that one, it is x plus 2. And then this one will cancel this. We have plus 3. And then this becomes our answer when we factorize this type of question under common factor factorization with bracket. That is that. But now, let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. What if we have, let me draw a line. What if we have, let's make an example of, let's take an example of 3 into x plus 1, and then plus 1, and then minus 4 into 1 minus x. There is no common factor in this one. We need to do something in order to change one of the two to have the same thing inside the bracket. In this case, we concentrate on this one. When you concentrate on that one, it's 3 into x plus 1. Then we affect here by a negative sign. This negative sign to this one to be plus 4. And into this one is positive, becomes negative 1. This one is negative, will become positive. Positive, and this one becomes, because it is, when we multiply first, when we multiply this, we must first have 4 into 1 minus x. And then we go on with this multiplied by this is minus 4, and this is also minus plus 4x. Is the same as 4x minus 4. When you're taking out a common factor, because we have taken out, it will be 4 into x minus 1. Because now this 4 was negative there, we apply the negative there, its affect this one, becomes positive. Therefore, we'll be having x into x plus 1 into plus 4 into x plus 1. And then we can be able now to take out a common factor out of this, which is x plus 1 into, we go to the root of dividing the term 1 by the highest common factor, which is going to give us x, and that one's going to give us, it's going to give us 3, and then minus 4. And then the answer will become, as we subtract this, and that is minus into x plus 1. The problem is here. we need to change that. It's very important to know this. By multiplying this first, so that when we are here, you have to convert this so that inside the bracket, we have the same common factor. Now, we are done with the first type of factorization, which is taking out a common factor factorization, which it does have two types. The type 1, which is the straight one, and the type 2, which has a bracket. Now, we are coming to the second one, which is called trinomial. We call it a trinomial factor factorization. Trinomial factor factorization. We can just term it trinomial. It's fine. You know what? This one is very interesting. Very interesting. Being interesting, you need to memorize, you need to understand it. It's going to bore you. However, when time goes on, it's not going to bore you. You're going to find it as easy as you can do it alone at home. When we talk about trinomial, we're talking of x squared plus bx plus c. There are 3 terms, 1, 2, and 3. These 3 terms, that's why we call it a trinomial. Tri means 3. Mial means term. It means we have 3 terms. Let's make an example. If we have x squared plus 8x plus 12. It's a trinomial because there are 1, 2, 3 terms. Now, this one, we need to understand each and every term and every operation sign that divide this expression. 12, for example, I can explain 12. 12, what can you multiply? Which 2 numbers can you multiply to get 12? In other words, what factors of 12 are? Factors of 12. The 2 numbers, when you multiply, you get 12. Let's make it a separate paper there. It is 1 and 12. It is 2 and 6. It is 3 and 4. It is, yes, there are 3. Yes, it is 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 12. These are the factors of 12. Hence, I'm saying, what are the factors of 12? Now, coming to this sign, what does it mean? The sign means they have the same sign. Now, the factors of 12, it can be 1 and 12, or 6 and 8, or 3 and 4. They have the same sign. The same sign. They have the same sign. In other words, if one is positive, the other one is going to be positive. If one is negative, the other one is going to be negative. They have the same sign. That's helpful to understand. Coming to the number 8. The number 8 means when these 2 factors of 12, when you add or you subtract, they must give you 8. When you add them or subtract them, they must give you, the sum should be 8. These factors of 12. Coming to this sign. This sign means both signs of those 2 factors is the same. They have the same sign. Those factors, they have the same sign. So now, if you take in the, what are the factors of this then? After this information, you have to write your bracket first, and then the factors of x will be x and x. The sign next to it say they have the same sign. When you add them, let's go back to the fact. When you add 1 plus 12, being positive, is 13. So the middle term is not 13. When you add 2 and 6, is what? Is 8. If you add them, in other words, their signs are positive. Then it will be positive and positive. Then always, because now this becomes our factors, start with the bigger factor, which is 6 and 2. This is the factors of our x squared plus 8 and plus 12. You can, if you want to prove it, whether you are right, you can multiply out this bracket and see whether you're going to get the answer as that prime factor of 3. Look, out of 3, our normal size there, out of 3, we have only 1 term. Out of 3 terms, we have only 1 term. Look at the sign. This is the meaning of the sign that I've already there. Yes, it's going to be difficult for you to understand, but time is going, you can check it, and then can go on, and then you'll master it thereafter. Now let's take up number 2, example number 2. Example number 2 will be x squared minus 7x plus 12. Before you start finding the factors of this, remember to understand the operations affecting this term, this algebraic expression. The 12, I already indicated. What times what gives you 12? What are you going to times that will give you 12? What are you going to times? Going to times. That will give you 12. Which are those two numbers? That will times themselves, and the product will be 12. You're asking yourself that. Now, this sign, as indicated, which means those factors have the same sign, are the same. The sign is the same. Same. Have the same sign. Now, coming to the number 7. The number 7, it can be a positive or a negative sign. It shows that because negative 7, it can be a negative sign or a positive sign. That will give you 7. That will give you 7. This negative sign means they are both. It shows you the factors of 12, both negative. Because when you add the two negative signs, they're going to give you 7, negative 7. Which are those negative numbers? Which are those 7 factors? Now you put the bracket, and then the x and x, and then we already said the signs are both the same, negative. Now what are the factors of 12? It's 1 and 12, it's 2 and 6, it's 3 and 4. But we're saying the signs of these factors are both negative. If you have negative 2 and negative 6, it's negative 8. It's not giving you negative 7. If it is negative 1 and negative 12, it's going to give you negative 13. However, negative 3 and negative 4 is going to be negative 7. But always start with the bigger or the greater factor, which is 4 and 3. So it means the factors of x squared minus 7x plus 12 is into x minus 4 into x minus 3. You can see the first one. You can see these two examples are not the same. Here we have a positive sign, here we have a negative sign. They are different, but here we have two positives. It's fine. This is the second example under trinomial. Important things you have to understand: the meaning of each term and the meaning of the operation sign between the terms. Come to example number 3. number 3. Example number 3 is x squared plus x minus 12. Same way as I indicated when I was explaining all these operations and the number 12. What do they mean? What must be multiplied so that you can get the product as 12? This sign means what? The sign means different signs. This sign now is showing that the factors of 12 they have different signs. Now, they have different signs. If now we go to here, we have invisible one here. What does it mean, invisible one? It means if you add or subtract factors of 12, they must give you 1. Here means if you subtract those factors, if one factor subtract another factor, they must give you 1. Because the invisible variable here is 1. The positive sign here. The positive sign there means it can be plus or and negative because the sign have the difference. There can be a positive sign, there will be positive or a negative sign. It will depend after now you have added or you have subtracted them to get the positive sign. Now let's go to the factors. After understanding this, the x and the x. And they say the factors, they must have the different sign. It can be positive, it can be negative. But when you add or you subtract, they must give you positive 1. So which means the factors of 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. When you add them, say for instance you start by this. If you're taking 1 as positive and this one as negative, add them, it's minus 11. If this one is positive and this one is negative, it's still the same, minus 11. If 2 is positive and 6 is negative, it's minus 4. It is not 1. If 6 is negative and this positive, it's minus 4, which is not 1 there. 3 is positive and this one is negative. When you subtract this, is negative 1. It's not because 3 is positive, 4 is negative. Therefore, the answer will be negative 1. It's not negative. But if 4 is positive and 3 is negative, when you subtract them or you add them, the answer it will be 1. Therefore, these are the factors of the trinomial. Always, I said, start with the greater or the bigger factor. There to be 4 and then to be 3. So, which means the factors of this trinomial are this. If you understand this information, yes, it is difficult to understand, but you must think of this information. It will be easy if you go on every time, going on every time, doing it. Example number 4, before I give you what you can do at home. That's where we have, let's see, x squared minus 4x minus 12. We can look at our examples. This one is different to this one. And all these two again are different to the first one and also different to the second one. So I tried my level best to give you different things so that I explain the signs between and the number 12. What does it? The 12 factors of 12. We have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Which factors here? The sign, this sign. What does it mean, that sign? The sign means the sign of those factors here are different. They have the different signs. have different signs. What about the 4 mean? The 4 means when you add or subtract, must give you 4. It must give you 4. 4. This sign means if you add or subtract, which means one must be negative, which means the bigger the first factor must be negative. The first factor here must be negative. The first factor must be negative. Must be negative. So now, let's go to the factors. After this information, it's boring, but you'll understand it. The x and x. And then we said the signs are different. The signs are different. You can put negative, you can put positive, because they are different. These signs are different. What are the factors of 12? When we have this, if now we have, because the sign must be different, if we have 1 as one factor is positive, this one's negative, it's going to be negative 10. It is 4. It's not giving us 4. If it is 6, it's 6 is negative, and this 2 is positive. It give us 4. It means the factors of here are 2, which is positive, and 6, which is negative. So always start with this higher or the greater factor, which is going to be 6 here and 2 here. So when you add them, negative 6 and 2, you're going to get negative 4. These are the factors of the expression x squared plus 4 minus 12. That's all about the trinomial. Now, let me give you something that you can go home and start to do it at home. Here are the following. You can do this at home and try to explain the way I tried to do them. Number A. Number A is x squared plus 7x plus 6. Number B is m squared minus 7m plus 12. Number C could be x squared plus x minus 6. And number D is x squared minus 3x minus 10. So these are the sum that we have to do at home. Now, a little bit. Let's see. We can start by completing the answer to that. That becomes our lesson, our second lesson. Let's start with number 1. Number 1 is, number A is x squared plus 7x plus 6. With 6, we know what are the factors of 6. What are those numbers when you multiply them to give the product as 6? The sign here, which means those factors have the same sign. When you add them, they must give you 7. 7 means the sign can be positive or it can be negative. Because when you add positive, it gives you 7. When those factors have negative, both have negative, it will give negative. The positive sign next to 7 means they've got the same, they have the same sign. In other words, if it's negative, both factors have negative. So let's get the answer with that information. then x, and then x. Now we said the sign are positive, have the same sign, positive. What are the factors of 6? The factors of 6, that when you add them, they'll give you 7. We have factors of 6, 1 and 6. We have 2 and 3. Now, if 1 is positive and 6 is positive, when you add them, giving positive 7. When you add 2 negative, if it is negative 1 and negative 6, you don't have negative 7, you have positive. It means now, here, always start with the bigger factor. It will be 6 and 1. So that is that. In other words, this information is very important. This type of information, if you understand this important information, it's very clear, you can do it. Number 2 is where we have m squared minus 7m plus 12. I think this one is the same as the number 2 of the example that I did with you earlier on. The factors of 12, 1 and 2, 1 and 12, is 2 and 6, and is 3 and 4. So the 12 means the same sign. If one factor is negative, that one must be negative as well. The 7 means when you add those factors, they must give you 7. The sign next to 7, it means the sign of those, because we don't know, because the signs of the factors can be positive or negative. But this sign tells you exactly that the factors must be both negative. So let's see the answer. Both negative. Both negative. And the factors of m, this is m. And then, if you add them, if you add this, if you are negative, if they are both negative, it's negative 13, falls off. If you add these negatives, because they said both factors are negative, if this one and this one are negative, it's 8. We cannot go on because they are not giving us positive negative 7. If 3 and 4 are negative, when you add them, they will give you 7. Therefore, these are the factors. Start with the bigger factor, which is 4 and 3. This becomes the factors of the expression above. If you understand the logic of the meaning of the operation and the meaning of 7 and 12, you are clear. It can be easy for you to go on. It's very easy, but it's boring. But if you can master them, you can get it right. Number C. That's why we have x squared plus x minus 6. Explain again. Exactly what I said, as I indicated it. That the 6, we want the factors of 6. It's 1 and 6, is 2 and 3. That's what you know. The product of these factors, they will give you 6. The negative sign next to 6, what does it mean? They have the different sign. In other words, the factors of 6, whether 6 and 1 or 3 and 2, they have the different signs. If 1 is positive, 1 is negative. If 1 is negative, 1 is positive. That this sign means. There is an invisible one here. When you add them and subtract them, they must give you 1. When you add them or subtract them, they must give you 1. Clear? And then this one means the bigger sign must have, the bigger factor must have a positive sign. Whether it is a positive, whether it's a negative, but the bigger factor must be a positive or a negative, must start with that. Let's have the factors. After the load that information, it's x and x. We said the signs are what? The signs are difference. So depend. If I start with positive here and it is negative, the signs are different. What are the factors of 6? Whereby when you add or subtract, it must give you 1. When you subtract 3 from 2 from 3, you get 1. So it will be 3 and 2. Now start with the bigger one, plus 3 and negative 2. So these are the factors. If you master the meaning of each term and the signs that separate the terms, therefore it's easy for you to master this. Number D, which is the last one, is x squared minus 3x minus 10. You can see all these examples. The signs are changing, maybe between the x squared and the middle term is negative or positive. They are changing, but you need to understand. With number 10, the factors is 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Are there any others again? Let's see. No. You can just say 10 and 1 or 5 and 2. The sign there means the signs are different. This sign tells us that the sign of those two factors are different. If one is positive, one is negative. If one is negative, one is positive. When you add them, whether negative or positive, they must give you negative 3. They must give you 3. And the sign means they can be positive or negative. But the first must be negative. Then we put the bracket. The first must be negative, negative. The second must be positive then. What are the factors of 10? Whereby, remember, the first, if it's positive, we take the bigger one, which is 5, and this one, which is the smaller one, which is 2. And this becomes our factors. This is a trinomial, the second way of factorizing the expression, algebraic expression. Now we come into the last one, which is the difference of two squares. Let's do an example so that I start to explain. If I have x squared minus 4, how many terms are there? There are 2 terms. They've been separated by a subtraction sign, by the negative sign, subtraction sign. And then the numbers are perfect squares. Perfect square. It's square and perfect square. And then to get the answer to this, very easy for this one, is x squared plus 2, it will be 2 to the second power. So it means there are there 3, 1, 2, 3. The fourth one, the signs of the brackets inside the bracket are different. Always different signs. Difference. These are 4 things that you need to remember. Then what with the factors? Put brackets. And then it's x, x, then 2, 2. The signs are different. These are the same, but always start with the positive. Positive, negative. Done. That is the factors of that. So look, if you want to master this, remember there are 2 terms. They've been separated by a negative sign. The numbers are perfect, and the signs are different inside the bracket. That is an example number 1. Example number 2 is where we have, let's say, y squared minus 25. Minus 25. We still follow the same procedure. We have all this the same. There are 2 terms. There are that also. They are separated by a negative sign. The number is perfect, and the signs inside the bracket must be different. So what could be the factors? It will be y, always start positive and negative. It will be What are the factors of this? It's the same as 25 is the same as 5 to the second power. It will be 5 and 5. It will be 5 and 5. So if you go on, now let's take the third example, which is 9m squared minus 1. Everything is perfect there. 1 by 1 is 1. So it's followed the same procedure of saying they are separated by a negative sign. There are two terms, perfect, and signs are different. With 9 is 3m squared minus 1 squared. Therefore, put big bracket. There are two 3m, because these two tells how many 3m that have you multiplied, 3m. So always put the first bracket and then that. 1, it will be 1, it will be 1. So these are the factors. Easy if you follow this. Easy. You can take many examples. Let's say we're taking v squared minus 36. The same procedure. V is also squared. 36 is 6 all squared. But we have the same sign. They've got two terms. They've got that. What are the factors? Is V. Start with the positive and negative. It's 6 and 6. Done. Now we come to the last example. And before I give you that, you can go and do it at home. The last examples. Here are the last example. When we have, as for example, 12. Let's say number 5. We have 3c squared minus, there are those that you need to take out something. However, I believe this is grade 10's work. But let's do it because I was thinking that we can do this. So here we take out a common factor, which is 3. We'll have to c squared minus 4d squared. Now this is the same as 3 into, now c is the same as c squared minus, that's the same as into 2d squared. And then it's two terms, and then what the factors is 3 into c, and then positive, and then negative. It will be 2d and 2d. It's very easy if you master two terms. Sign which is separated terms is that. It's a perfect, and there's a different signs. They have different signs. The different signs, the factors have the different signs. Please, today I want to give you this so that you can go and complete at home. Number 1, it is a squared minus z squared. Number 2 is c squared minus 4x squared. Number 3, it will be, now I'm challenging you now. It will be into r plus 1 all squared minus 4. This level 4, 1. These are level 1, 1. Then let me put a level 2. Level 2, it could be 49 h squared minus 64s squared. This can become level 3. I've got level 1, I've got level 4, 3, and then level 10, and the last one, it could be, let's say, let me put what, let me say, all right, it can be k plus minus 1 all squared minus 100. So I ask you to complete this at home, and then you'll see how best can you do. For the day, thank you.